Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to the Mindset-Conquest Podcast, where every week I'll be joined by a special guest who will be sharing what they've experienced as the biggest failure in their life, but most importantly, the lessons that they've learned from that experience. I'll be spending time with people that I've met throughout my life's journey in business, music, and sport. And the goal is to provide listeners like yourselves with the motivation needed to get through all of life's challenges and learn not to be afraid of failure, but rather to embrace it. Please like and subscribe and enjoy this episode. I'm Chris Atwell. On today's episode, I'm joined by Andru Valpy. Andru is a full-time digital marketing manager and multimedia artist based in Niagara Falls, Canada. He has over a decade of experience in the corporate world of marketing, working with some of the world's leading and largest brands, and has an additional 2 decades of broadcast experience in both TV and radio. When he's not filling inboxes with marketing emails or serving up hyper-focused targeted ads, he can be found documenting his travels on his YouTube channel, Aimlessly Wandering, and taking photographs for his Instagram feed, Aimless Andru. At home, he shares his passion for life with his loving wife and son and 4 pets. Welcome to the Mindset-Conquest Podcast. I've got a very special guest today, Andru Valpy. Andru, how are you doing, man?
I'm great, Chris. Thanks so much for having me. It's exciting to be here today.
Thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it. Why don't we start by giving our listeners a little idea of who Andru is, where he's from, what does he do, what hobbies he has, etc.
Yeah, that's a very loaded question. But right now, as you can tell from my background, I'm located in Niagara Falls, Ontario, having just moved here about a year ago, Chris. And it's been such an exciting journey. Just to be able to have the Niagara Falls like right down the street from us is incredible. But prior to that, I've traveled quite a bit. As you know, we've met when I was living in Winnipeg. I've lived in Massachusetts. I've lived in Arizona. I've lived in British Columbia, and of course, the big smoke, Toronto. So can't go without saying that. But yeah, that's who I am and where I'm from. And as far as like what I do, man, if I had to describe it, it would be a multimedia artist, Chris. I dabble in videography. I have a YouTube channel. I do a lot of professional photography, done some concert photography, which I'm sure we'll touch on. And in past, I've also hosted radio shows. So I'm just a jack of all trades.
Wow. Yeah. You and I met, over a decade ago. I was interviewed on your radio show at the time. You were living in Winnipeg. Now you're in Niagara Falls. You've been to all these places. Where is your favorite place that you've lived?
Oh gosh, that's a loaded question. Where is my favorite place and where do I consider home? I have to say, as much as it gets farted on all the time, Winnipeg actually feels a little bit like home to me. Okay. Small town province, but the nicest people you'll ever meet and a lot of opportunity if you go looking for it there. And then next to that, I have a special place in my heart for Arizona. I spent most of my formative years there, and there's just nothing like having that desert sun hit your skin in the middle of winter. Yeah. Thinking about all those suckers who have snow back home. And now I'm one of those suckers. So, I think those 2 places hold a special place in my heart.
So multimedia artist, you're a photographer, a DJ, radio host. You even have your YouTube channel. I looked recently. You've got this a character that you like to have when you're traveling around. Why don't you tell me a little bit about this character?
Oh, you've done your homework, Chris. Very good. So my wife and I created a plushie, a stuffed animal, and our intention was, when we first started dating, my wife, Adrienne, she was living in Pennsylvania. I was living in Hamilton at the time. And we wanted to show each other our cities. And we thought of a unique way of doing that was having one of my friends commissioned to draw a creature based on kind of these visions that we had in our head. And it was kind of like Where the Wild Things Are mixed with a little bit of like Dr. Seuss. I don't know. And they came together to form what we've called Mitts. Mitts. And he is a traveling plushie. You can find him on Instagram at Mitstagrams. But what started it out was, when we weren't together, we wanted to showcase the cities that we lived in, to show each other our towns and really get excited for where we lived. Mm-hmm. And I think it's evolved now that we're married. Our intention, and this is something that we hope to do within the next few years, is to take what MITS stands for, his love, his passion, his, openness to the world, and really turn that into a children's book. And that's something that we're really excited to, start putting pen to paper and getting some ideas.
Will this be your first foray into writing, or what does that look like?
Yeah, from a publishing standpoint, yes. It's something that I've never really done myself. My wife is a bookworm. She's on Book Talk and Bookstagram, and she's really into the writing and reading. And if you ask her, I think her goal last year was 52, and she hit 80 something books in the year. So she's
kidding. Wow.
Yeah, she's definitely a bookworm, and I love her for it. But I think, taking her experiences from all the books that she's read and putting my creativity to it, I think the two of us will really create something special. And it'd be nice to pass on to our young little niece, our nephews, and, maybe even our grandkids one day. Who knows?
Kids' books are something special. We all have a special place in our heart for one or two books that we grew up reading with our parents. I've got two kids right now, and there's bookshelves upstairs, and there's nothing better than right before bed, getting together with your children, cuddled up, and reading a book with them, especially once they start reading it themselves. That's pretty cool too.
100%. I mean, unfortunately, our 14-year-old probably wouldn't want to read it at this age. How teenagers are. I'll give my son all the credit in the world. He definitely is supportive of MITS, although when he's out with us traveling and he has, MITS being held, he kind of turns his head away in embarrassment. But I think one day he'll come to appreciate it.
Every kid is embarrassed of their parents at 14 years old. He'll come to appreciate it. I'm sure.
Exactly.
Very cool. So the whole future holds this potential kids book. What about your DJing career, your other broadcasting stuff like that? What are you up to these days?
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, honestly, Chris, I've put that a little bit aside for now because I really wanted to just focus on my family and my full-time career. What I haven't said yet is I'm a full-time digital marketing manager, aspiring to become a director, and taking all the steps needed to kind of, manifest my own destiny there. But yeah, I have the decks. They're actually sitting right beside me here with the headphones, and they're looking at me saying, come play with me. So, every Friday night or so, when the mood's right, I'll spin some tunes just for the sake of doing it. And then for the photography, it's something that my wife and I constantly do together. It's so incredible to have a wife who is so supportive and creative, and to be able to share the vision and inspiration. There's a couple projects that her and I have teamed up on, even professionally speaking, where she'll be kind of my assistant, but she'll be more importantly my eyes, and she'll kind of see things that maybe I missed. So the photography and the videography is always going to be a part of me. If anything, it's a creative release to kind of escape from the two jobs that I hold. And so that's always going to be there.
I can totally relate, man. I was a music producer for almost 20 years. I'm in my studio right now, and I've parked music production to focus on other things in my life as well too. And that's good. That's good that you're doing that. Focus is absolutely required. If you want to be successful in your digital marketing career, you have to have real unwavering focus and direction and a vision. And it sounds like you have that. So good for you, man. You're doing it for the right reasons, and having fun, having a creative outlet, nothing beats that. Everybody needs a fun hobby that's healthy, that helps you, decompress and release some stress.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it better myself.
So you've done a lot of things in your life. You've traveled around North America, living from town to town. You're aspiring digital marketing director. The journey has taken you in many different directions, I'm sure.
Yes.
I want to ask you a big question.
For sure.
Yeah. What do you consider to be your biggest failure? And what did you learn from that failure?
Yeah. And, I've put a lot of thought into this. It's not easy to open up and be so candid, especially on a podcast such as yours, and get the audience that you do. But, if I had to think about it, Chris, I think about the question a little bit differently. And I think about a time when I was actually set up for failure, and how did I overcome that? Wow. So let's start on that journey. A few years ago, I was in Hamilton and I was in a relationship of a couple years and I had lost my job. It was a horrible corporate restructuring experience and did not see it coming. And unfortunately, my work got outsourced to an agency. So as you can imagine, when you lose your primary source of income and you become dependent on your partner, it definitely weighs yourself, the relationship, as well as like basically life and really your self-esteem. I was presented with an exciting opportunity, or at least I was led to believe it was an exciting opportunity. And it was as a digital marketing account manager. And I thought, great, this is right up my field. This is, exciting. And it was in an industry that I thought was, emerging. Yes, it was in publishing, like newspaper publishing. However, it was more of their digital side of things. So the offer was presented, Chris. It was all the things that you thought it would be. You'll get base plus solid commission. Some reps are making $100,000 in their first year, right? Yeah. And me being naive and desperate for a job and more or less being forced to take a job, I was like, okay, you know what? We're going to give it a try. We're going to go in, guns a-blazing, positive attitude, and let's really just whip this out. Well, what ended up happening first and foremost was it wasn't actually as much digital as much as it was standard print. It was standard newspaper. And if anyone is our age or, maybe even a little bit older, they know that print newspapers aren't really the way that the future holds. Second to that, I'm coming in with a book of business that I was given that hasn't been touched in about 2 to 3 years for whatever reason. And then compounding that, not that I'm personally against unions, but I was put into a union and I was at the very bottom of the barrel. Okay, great. Well, I'm still coming in optimistic. I'm ready to go. And now I'm reaching out and cold calling these, past clients who haven't been spoken to in 2 to 3 years. Meanwhile, my relationship at home had taken a turn for the worse. It was kind of becoming borderline toxic. And me being the person that I am, the caring person that I am, and not trying to toot my own horn, I didn't want to give up. So I've got this work life struggle. I've got this home life struggle. And I'm just kind of feeling like I'm being pulled in so many different directions.
Right.
Fast forward a few months. And, quite honestly, none of my clients were really feeling it. They said the same thing I just said to you. Everyone knows newspaper is dying. Oh, you're that newspaper that comes to me unexpectedly every week. I toss that in the recycle bin. Why would I want to invest my dollars into that? Then you try to talk them into the digital side of things. And based on their past experience with previous representatives, it just didn't seem like a good fit for them. Mm-hmm. Well, in the midst of all of this, as I'm struggling to close sales and, really having a hard time believing in what I'm selling, because if I'm going to sell you, I need to believe in it. Let's be real, right?
Sales 101. You got to believe in what you're selling. Absolutely.
Right. So while that was happening, my ex-partner at the time, she decided that it was time to end it. And unexpectedly, just out of the blue, a week before we were looking at houses together. And then it was just, I think this should end. I don't see a future with you.
Holy smokes. Okay.
And it was just the worst timing, Chris, if I had to be honest. It was just another kick in the pants. And at that point, I started feeling very, very low on myself. I saw the failure at home, the failure at my work, and I'm somebody who's ambitious. I'm somebody who's goal-driven. And when you feel the world closing in on you, you just had no idea what that did to me. It was very dark. I went to some very dark places. And my sales leader came back shortly thereafter, and I was candid and transparent. She had just been on mat leave, so she had actually never met me before. I was reporting to an interim leader who was fantastic, I might add. But the one that came back, I just, I went in, I was like, listen, I'm struggling. I need your help. I need your help. And I also went to my union reps' help, and I was like, hey, I need your help. What ended up happening was I actually ended up, instead of getting help, I got pushed more and more into a corner. I was actually put on a performance plan, which, for the first time in my professional career. And it wasn't because of lack of spite or lack of effort. It was literally just everything collapsing down. So how did I get over that? How did I grow from that? I was very fortunate. One of the best parting gifts my ex-girlfriend at the time gave me was the opportunity to meet with somebody at a very well-known international tech company whose name I can't share at the moment. But they were very, very open to meeting with me and putting me through the pipeline. And it was so interesting, Chris, because this was an organization that I've always aspired to work for. Mm-hmm. And they saw something in me. And that's when I started to kind of think a little bit differently. I started to see my self-value. And I was like, okay, well, they're thinking of me. Where is this going? Fast forward 9 months, because that's how long the process took. I actually ended up landing the position that I wanted there. And though it was part-time, it was a great way to get my foot in the door. And when I got that offer letter, Chris, let me tell you, two things happened. My self-esteem shot way, way up. I felt like I was appreciated. Mm-hmm. And second of all, I actually was excited because somebody saw something in me that I'd been lacking for the last 2 years at this previous job, and also getting over a heartbreak. And it just lifted me that much further. So as I'm on this performance plan, failing miserably in the sales world, I'm excelling in this totally other world. And it all kind of started to dawn on me, all these people are right. Newspaper is dying. Don't let anyone fool you. There is no space for digital. Let's go, or there's no playground for digital, I should say, with this particular company. Why don't I go back to what I'm good at? And that was digital marketing. And I've always been excellent in that field. And I felt, having been misled, I need to get back into my profession. Well, wouldn't you know it, I started applying. And this multinational global conglomerate was interested in what I had to say and how I got there and what to do. So now I've got this international tech company who's hired me part-time. I've got this full-time multinational that's eyeing me up. And I'm on top of it, Chris. I couldn't explain it any differently. I literally went from the darkest I've probably ever been to the brightest I could have potentially reached. And then the job offer came. And that was just the proof in the pudding. It was a great feeling. And what I did was something I don't encourage your viewers or followers to ever do, but I burnt a bridge. And what I mean by that is I wrote a very professional exit letter, basically saying how I felt, where they were wrong, and where they could go.
Okay.
Yeah. Just going to leave it like that.
And was it clean? Was it a clean letter?
It was professionally worded. There was no swear words. There was nothing I wouldn't say publicly to anybody's face. But I left it in the email inbox. I slipped a physical copy out the door. I said goodbye to the 2 friends that I had at that office, which is also pretty sad. And I left just feeling on top of it. And to celebrate and to really get in touch with myself, I gave myself about a week and a half before I started the new job. And one of my closest friends, Sean, and I went to Cuba, and we spent 5 days there just kind of decompressing, getting all that PTSD from the office, getting over the relationship, and just really making myself feel whole again. Mm-hmm. And then I came in fresh at this multinational conglomerate. And, what I can say is, that offer from both the part-time and the full-time came at a time when I really desperately needed it. And, I'm not one to practice like preaching, but I certainly put it out to the universe. And I was like, hey, I need some help. I need something. And that kind of happened. And I think it goes back to what I said at the beginning of the interview when I said, I'm an aspiring director of digital marketing. I'm currently a manager, but I think, I said manifest destiny. And I think that's honestly what happened, whether it was conscious or subconscious. I think I started to do that. So that was quite honestly one of the hardest times in my adult life, when I was basically led to believe that this career was going to be awesome, accelerate my growth, and make some 6-figure salaries, only to be let down.
Wow. Yeah, it does sound like you mentioned in the beginning that you were set up for failure in a way, right? You entered into this role not truly understanding what it was all about. You had this image, this vision of what it was going to be. They didn't clearly communicate that to you, exactly what it was going to be. And then when you got into it, you're like, oh no, okay, but I'm still going to give it my all. Yeah. Even though you were kind of like, this isn't exactly what I want to be doing here. And as that's going on, you go through a tremendous amount of heartbreak in your personal life. Challenges keep coming your way. You hit an all-time low emotionally. You get put on a development plan, after seeking assistance and help, which is almost like another kick in the pants, like you said. And then you're like, hey, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? And I'm a believer in the law of attraction. And it sounds like that's kind of what happened here. It was like, you know what? I'm going to ask the universe for some help and see where it gets me. A lot of people undervalue themselves, particularly in these sort of situations, right? And I get the sense that at that time, you kind of felt worthless. You kind of felt, you weren't worthy. You didn't value yourself. And what we need to do as humans is we got to push that aside and remind ourselves of all the good things, that we are great people, that we have a lot to offer in this world, that we are loved, that we can love, that we can, all of these things. And by doing that, you send out positive vibes and you get positive vibes back. So I'm happy that it worked out for you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
on getting through that challenge. It doesn't sound like it was easy. That's a lot to unpack at once.
Yeah, it was definitely a challenge. But I think to your point, I'm persistent. I'm definitely ruthless in some ways. And, even though I was on that performance plan and even though I wasn't getting the help when I needed it, Chris, there are ways of getting help. You just ask the universe, like you said, you put it out there and you do overcome it. And, I think that's one thing I would say to your viewers is like, you got to believe in yourself first and foremost. And I think as dark as it got, I knew there were bigger things ahead, Chris. And I knew that I wasn't going to be as bad as I thought it would be. It was just a rough patch. And I think to your point, if you put it out there, man, the universe is going to put it right back at you. And I'm also a believer in karma. So there's also that too.
No, that's great advice. That's great advice for people who are going through, some downfalls in their own right. One of the things that I help people with in my coaching business is creating empowering beliefs for yourself, right? We often have limiting beliefs. And when we hit a low, those limiting beliefs really take hold of your brain. And it's hard to let go of all those thoughts. And if you can flip those limiting beliefs into empowering ones and then find a way to repeat that to yourself so that you're sending that message out, whether that's giving yourself affirmations in the morning or including it as part of your meditation or simply just repeating it while you're driving your car on your way to work, that message is energy and that energy comes back. I'm telling you. So great advice. I'm with you on that one. 100%.
Solid.
So that was a resource you tapped into was the universe, obviously, but who else personally helped you?
Yeah, and I think about my influencers. I think about the people that I've grown up with. I would be remiss if I didn't say my parents are two of the, four really. I'm lucky to have two sets of parents. They're always been such an influence in believing in me and motivating me. If you ask my mom, she'll tell you I am an artist and I have that artistic personality. If you ask my father, he'll tell you I am a hard worker and that I do good work when I put my mind to it, which nowadays is more common than it used to be. But then I think about my friends and more, my wife, especially my wife and son. I'm trying to be a role model for my son. 14, as you know, is a very influential age. And, he's very fortunate to have two sets of parents who love and care for him and is very active in his life. And I think that's kind of what I'm trying to do now is, I'm taking the influence of my best friends. I've got two of my closest ones, Chris and Matt, who they're always pushing me to go harder and to try harder. And equally, I'm there for them to push it back. So I think if you surround yourself with people who are not always going to say yes to you, who are not always going to say, oh, you can do it, but people who are really going to push you and challenge you and motivate you, I think those are the people that will really help me as an individual and then to your viewers too, really, excel in life and think about things differently. And if I might, I'll share a quick story on that if you're cool with it.
Please do.
One of the best things that one of my coaches at my part-time job did to me, I was growing shortly after I got hired at this part-time role. I moved into a new position that I was totally not sure about. I've never been somebody to fix or tinker or, use little tools. And I got into this role and I just wasn't feeling like I was myself. And I thought I made a bad decision. I wanted to go back to another role. And my coach sits me down and he was a very great guy. And he says to me, why do you want to go back to your former role? I said, well, I feel like I'm failing the team. I'm just not getting it. I'm not excited about it. And I just don't feel right about it. And he goes, well, Andru, is that because you don't like it, or is it because you're being challenged and being pushed in a way that's actually making you uncomfortable? And he went even a step further. He goes, I have a feeling that you're someone who's used to getting what he wants all the time and how he gets there. He goes, but I have a feeling you don't know how to be uncomfortable and accept that uncomfortableness. He goes, before I transfer you back to your old role, I want you to stop and think about what you're saying. And I want you to embrace that uncomfortableness and get comfortable in uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And Chris, I have to give shout out to that gentleman. His name was Sean, and he totally hit the nail on the head. As soon as he said that, and I just accepted that uncomfortableness and actually started talking to my teammates and the new team, holy cow, was he ever right? So I think it just goes back to having that support system in place. And I think those are the people that, I associate with and that make me who I am, to be honest.
Wow. Be comfortable with being uncomfortable. Those are powerful words. And people need to understand that without getting out of your comfort zone, you're not going to grow. Right. Yeah. I got sent a message today from somebody who's influential to me, and it says, take action, fail, learn, grow, repeat, be uncomfortable, right? Yeah. Which is, if you really want to become the best version of yourself in your career, you're chasing this director role, you got to be uncomfortable sometimes. You have to be able to navigate through new challenges. It's okay to feel like you're not fully engaged, or it's okay to feel like maybe you're not giving the team what they're looking for. Asking for feedback and seeing how you can improve on that to make sure that you're doing it is going to help you get there.
Totally.
Right? That's true leadership, is consistently developing as an individual and seeking feedback.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, you talked about some people that influence you. We talked about the advice you would give them. What about in your daily life? It sounds like you're pretty keen on getting to this director role. You've got your sights on many aspirations, and to get to successful places in life, we have to instill good habits.
Yeah.
So I wonder, what are some of the good habits that you practice?
Yeah. So I think, some of the habits that I try to live by, Chris, is I look at it in two worlds. I look at my professional career and I look at my personal life, right? In my professional career, the easiest trick that I live by is live in inbox zero. And I know that sounds like it's a hard goal to accomplish, but in all actuality, it's either one of two things are going to happen when you get that email. It's something you can bang out real quick and get a response if you have a couple seconds, or it's going to need a couple of days to get back. So if that's the case, hey, I will get back to you in this day, right? Mm-hmm. What that does is allows me, mentally speaking, to keep my head clear and not be distracted by the 1,343 numbers that light up our phone and inboxes. Right. I also kind of look at daily scrums as an option. I think, it's a good habit to really just touch base with your coworkers and see not only how they're doing on their work, but how they're doing as people. Because at the end of the day, it used to be we spend more time with our coworkers than we do our family, but now we're working with them differently, especially with a lot of people still working remotely, right? Mm-hmm. Just to have that check-in and a personal check-in to really make sure that they feel valued, and they are, and to also let them know that you're there for them. But then for me personally, I'm all about routines. And, I think as old manish as this is going to sound, I like to have those routines. I like to be regimented. The first thing my wife and I will do in the morning is we'll wake up and have coffee together, and we'll eat our, English muffin or bagels, and we'll just kind of wake up and be together to kind of start the day together, right? Take lunches, people. That's another good habit I cannot stress enough. It's so easy to work through lunches. But just to have that 30 minutes or an hour with my wife at lunch is perfect. But then, at the end of the night, I think it's just about decompression. And to your words about affirmation, we all kind of thank the universe in our own ways. But, each night before I go to sleep, as nerdy and cheesy as it may sound, I do affirmations. And you know what? I'm not ashamed of it, because it keeps me positive and it keeps me looking forward to the goals that I'm hoping for. And it puts out that good juju out there, and walks. I'm very fortunate to have a lovely dog who's currently sitting beside me slurping. But he's a great way to just kind of get out and clear your head. You take a 15-minute walk with a dog, and, it really does give you an opportunity to kind of think about things differently, or even take conference calls on walks, as long as it's not windy, because then it gets you moving. And when your body's moving and you're outdoors with nature, that's a huge thing. And I think one last good habit that I try to practice is, taking time off. And I don't do it as often as I'd like to, especially the last couple of years. But, when I take time off, I shut down. Everything that's work related goes to somebody else. I delegate that out. My primary focus becomes my family and myself. And it's just about making sure that you get in touch with yourself and give your body the rest that it needs. Because Chris, you're like me. You push and you push and you push yourself. And then eventually your body's like, nah, brah, we need some time, right?
You got to take a break every now and then, listen to your body. Yeah.
Exactly. So I think those are some quick ones that I could think of. And otherwise, just being open to feedback. I think that's a good habit to get into. To your point, and you said it earlier, being open to feedback, and more importantly, seeking out feedback. It's scary at first to be vulnerable and to ask your coworkers and your peers, hey, what do you think of this? But I can certainly tell you, with my present role as a digital marketing manager, we've actually come to form a really good team. And that's because we know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and we're candid with each other. And, props to my coworkers, because I know I'm a handful to deal with sometimes, but they always know how to get through to me, and they always know how to, make sure that the workplace is fun. So be open to feedback. That's another good habit.
All excellent habits to practice. Many people, their inbox is just a clutter bomb, right? A cluster bomb of way too much stuff going on, no filing system, anything. And just looking at it can be stressful. If you can learn to manage your inbox to a point where you're at 0 every day, my limit is 20. That's kind of my thing. It feels great. It relieves stress. It calms the mind. Frees space up in your brain. So love that one. Affirmations, all for it. Every day, tell the world that you're the greatest. Tell the world that you're going to achieve all your goals. That's just positive mindset. Really important stuff. Every great successful leader and every self-help book will tell you to do that, right? Yep. Absolutely. Have lunch. Come on, people. Have lunch.
Gotta eat, man.
Feed your brain, feed your soul, talk to some people, have a social hour with people, and disconnect. I always do the same as you when it comes to vacations and time off work. Shut her down.
Yeah.
Right. I encourage everyone that I work with to do the same. Guys, don't answer emails on your days off, right? Let me do it for you, or ask somebody to do it for you. You're just going to have that moment to kind of reset, reconnect, and you're going to come back far more productive and feeling a lot better. Absolutely. So all great stuff. Thank you very much for sharing.
No worries. And actually, one quick thought, you said something just now about taking the time with your coworkers and piggybacking off what I said. I look at the Nordic countries, Chris, and man, those guys got it figured out. I don't know if you've ever heard of fika. It's literally, they shut down for 15 minutes a day, and they go to the coffee room, and they literally do not talk about work for 15 minutes. They sit there and they enjoy their culture, their coffee, and it's instilled into their culture. And you know what? I feel like we could benefit from that over on this side of the continent too. So that's another thing that I thought of.
Well, I know some of the Scandinavian countries and a lot of Europe, they get like 12 weeks off work too, which is amazing.
I know. Come on, Canada. Anyway.
Yeah, let's move to Norway.
Right?
Oh, hey, Andrew, it's been a real pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for opening up and sharing your story around failure and the things that you learned from it. Some great takeaways there. And I hope that people who are listening can relate and can draw some of that experience to help them get through some of the challenges that they're facing. Before we go, where can people connect with you online?
Absolutely. So it's andruvalpy.ca, and that's ANDRUVALPY.ca. And you can also find me on all of the socials at Aimless Andrew, and that's Andrew with a U. But Chris, thank you so much for having me. Thanks to your viewers for paying attention to my story. And it's been an honor, and I'd love to do it again sometime.
All right. Well, you take care. Thank you.
Take care, guys.